All right, so that's what we're going to be learning here. Very simple little melody. And I'm playing this in the key of B. And it's just a 1-4-5 chord format. So our 1 chord is a B, our 4 chord is an E, our 5 chord is an F sharp. And you don't have to worry so much about the names, you know, the B, E, and F sharp, because most of what we're going to be referring to are the numbers and the shapes here. And you'll see what I mean as we get into it. But I want you to start off by picturing the B. So the first thing we're going to do is learn that 1-4-5 chord format in 2 positions. And this will all make sense in the end. It's all going to tie together. So just kind of bear with me. So we're going to start off with playing the B chord down here using the A shape. But we don't need to make the full chord. We just need this triad. That actually is the full chord. Those are the 3 notes in your B chord. So that's your B chord using 1 finger to bar here on the 4th fret. We're only playing strings 4, 3, and 2. And remember this as a sidebar, you can get to any major chord just with 1 finger if you just know where it is on the fretboard, obviously. So if we were playing a D chord, for example, there it is using the A shape, you could play it like this. You can get to all your chords that way, all your major chords that way with 1 finger. Just wanted to point that out. It's one of those things that I didn't realize until years into playing. Okay, so, or it just never dawned on me, I guess. So that's your 1 chord. Now our 4 chord, we're going to keep that bar there, but we're going to add middle finger to the 5th fret, 2nd string, ring finger to the 6th fret, 4th string. We're still going to play strings 4, 3, and 2. So that's going to be our 4 chord. Some of you hear me talk about this as the Keith Richards thing that he does quite a bit, or I associate this with him because you can quickly hammer on from your 1 chord to your 4 chord. It's an easy way to get between those chords. 1 chord, 4 chord. This is also the C shape out of Caged. So if you're thinking of Caged, and in fact this would be your G shape out of Caged, and then this would be your C shape out of Caged. All right, 1, 4. Then we go to the 5 chord. We're going to go the E shape out of Caged. But we're not going to play the full bar. We're just going to play strings 4, 3, 2, and 1. And that leaves my pinky free to do all kinds of little embellishments and things. And so I can get to my 1-4-5 now by going like this. So 1-4-5-1. Now we're going to learn the 1-4-5 in a different position, but we're going to use the exact same shapes. So instead of starting with this shape, which would be from your G chord or your A chord, depending on how you look at it, it's the same triad in between them. Instead of starting with that, we're going to start with the E shape, but we're going to start up here. So it looks like this. So we're barring the first 2 strings on the 7th fret this time. So that's our 1 chord. Our 4 chord is that bar, like we did down here, but now we're doing it up here on the 9th fret, strings 4, 3, and 2. So we've got our 1 chord, our 4 chord. I use my ring finger to play it like this. The 5 chord, rather, we're going to use the C shape and play it right here. Now, some of you may not have thought of that. I know I didn't think of that for a long time. I used to think 1, 4, 5. 5 was always like 2 frets up from whatever 4 was, which is true. That would be one way to do it. But you can also go like this for your 5. So use that C shape. And again, I'm just playing strings 4, 3, and 2. And then we go back to 1. So practice that first, going like this. 1, 4, 5, 1. And then do it up here. 1, 4, 5, 1. Okay, now here's where it gets really cool. So you've got your 1, 4, 5 here, you've got your 1, 4, 5 here. And if I go back to this triad that's in that G shape that we started with, if I were to put my pinky up here on the 7th fret 1st string, that's also a B note. That's another way to make the chord. And that's also the anchor point for where you go into the E shape, so you can think of it that way. But I like to think of this as my major pentatonic scale. Look at this. It's right there. I'm already outlining it just by making that shape. So you can think of it that way, or you can just think of where you've got this bar here for your 1 chord. That's also the little triad that lives within the major pentatonic scale. So now I've got a 1-4-5 here, a 1-4-5 here, and I've got the major pentatonic scale, which is a lot of the tools I need to be able to make music. So when I started this song, I went, it actually comes in on the 2. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So I started with a very simple lick. So all I'm doing for that, and that's just major pentatonic scale, pattern 1, but I'm here on the 6th fret 3rd string doing a full bend, a release, down to the 4th fret, and then the 6th fret 4th string. So that's the lick. Now if you're on an acoustic guitar, or you have thicker strings, or you can't bend, you can slide. And that works too. Either way sounds great. Now after that, I did a quick change. So I go back to the chord, the 1 chord, hammer on to the, or just play the 4 chord. I didn't really hammer on. And then back to the 1 chord. So all together. Okay, now the second time through, this is where it gets interesting. Played the same melody, but this time I'm harmonizing with it. I'm using harmonized thirds. And the way that you want to think about this, and I've covered this in other lessons, but it's always good to recap this because I use this so much. But let's look back at this shape, this little triad. If I look at just strings 2 and 3, I've got a harmonized third here. And if I were to come up to this B chord up here using the E shape, looking at just strings 2 and 3, I've got a harmonized third here. And a harmonized third is just 2 notes that are 3 intervals apart. So these are notes in the B major scale. So what I can do now is I can connect this chord shape to this chord shape with this harmonized third, just like this. So you can see what I did. I held the shape there from this chord, strings 2 and 3, walk it down, and then came into this shape. And so that's incredibly useful if you're wanting to play a little harmonized lead, because you can always find it off of this shape, off of this triad. And this triad lives either in the A shape or the G shape, however you want to think about it. So now you've got a little harmony that you can work into your lead. You can even bend. If you want to get a real country sound, you can bend both strings right there. And you can go backwards too. So anyway, there's a lot of mileage that can happen there with those harmonized thirds, but it's a nice connection point between here and here. That's how I think of it anyway. So back from the beginning. Now, here's another thing you can do. You can go down, so from here, strings 2 and 3, I can go down 2 frets, and I'm playing the 7 version, the dominant 7 of whatever this chord is. So this is a B chord. If we want to play the B7 chord, which sounds like that, depending on how you make it, you get that sound. It's actually a B9 if you really want to get technical, but it sounds like a 7 because it's got that flat 7 in it. So I like to just take that harmonized third there and just walk it down 2 frets. That's another takeaway for you. So if you're ever playing like a D chord, for example, using the A shape, you can walk down to that 7 sound and get that kind of bluesy dominant 7 thing. All right, so after we walked down, then I went into the 4 chord, and I did a half bend there. That's still on the 6th fret 4th string, or actually 6th fret 3rd string. It's not a full bend. You could do a full bend. You just get a happier sound. If you do a half bend, it gets into that bluesier sound. And then I go into the 4 chord. And then I came and played the 4 chord up here. So that's why I showed you in 2 positions. So we can quickly transition from the 4 chord to the 4 chord. So hopefully this is making sense. It's the same chord. It's an E chord and an E chord. I wanted to point out that, the 2 positions for the 1-4-5. So we're here, and then we come up here, down to the 7th fret 2nd string, and then back to the 1 chord. But we're playing the 1 chord here now because we're in this neighborhood now. We've now moved from this neighborhood up to this neighborhood. And then I went a little embellishment with my pinky. Like I said before, I kept my pinky free so I can do things like this. And that's really converting that chord. I'm just hammering on, or I'm actually playing the 3rd string on the 9th fret while I keep the rest of the chord. And then I remove it. And that's going from the B to the B sus4 back to the B. Classic kind of country move. You can get a lot of mileage out of just that. And again, that's why, to me, like, instead of making the full bar chord where you've utilized all your fingers, why would you do that? You can get the same sound this way, and I've got my pinky to go, you know, to do things like that I couldn't do if I was trying to play all 6 strings. And you don't gain that much more value out of those extra low notes. And then I went to the 5 chord using the C shape. So that's barring the first 4 strings on the 6th fret, but I've got my middle finger on the 7th fret 2nd string, ring finger on the 8th fret 4th string. So we played the F sharp chord there. And then I came down and played it here. Same chord, but just played it out of that E shape and just used that triad on the top 3 strings. Added my pinky to the 5th fret 2nd string to give you that flatted 7, that dominant 7 sound. So it's like just an F7, F sharp 7, sorry. But when you're picking the notes out of the chords, it sounds like part of your lead. It sounds different, right? Okay, so from here, we go to the 5 chord down here, and then I came back and went and walked it down. That's that same little harmonized 3rd thing that I've already explained. So we're going from this shape to this shape. Back to the 4, and then back to the 1. And that's the whole thing.